For better or worse, NASCAR attendance has been one of the big talking points of really any NASCAR discussion for the last 20 years. Back in the 2000s and the 90s, it was pretty normal to have 100,000 to 150,000 people attending a NASCAR race. And since 2005, up until the pandemic, it was pretty normal to see less and less people showing up to a NASCAR race. But since said pandemic, there has been a big boom, and it doesn't really matter what track it is for the most part. Whether it be the Daytona 500 getting back to prime NASCAR levels of attendance, or Pocono getting back to all-time highs, Kansas, for instance, in the playoffs is up a ton, as well as pretty much any other track that puts on relatively decent racing. They've all been up in a lot of ways. And this is all over the country, all types of tracks. Doesn't matter. NASCAR fans are coming out in force, the diehards at least. And then this leads to what happened at Pocono this past weekend. An unacceptable traffic jam. Giant lines, reminiscent to many of the Kentucky Speedway debacle back in 2011, where the track and the state in no way were planning and ready for a crowd as big as a NASCAR crowd. And we saw it with fans being in 3 to 5 hours of traffic jams coming into Pocono, some fans missing the first stage, second stage, or completely missing the race as a whole as they just decided to turn back. And they're rightfully angry about this. Pocono has vowed to fix this, though it seems like this is more of a one-time thing, as while traffic problems in general are problems for NASCAR races, this was way out there, and this is probably the only or one of the only times something like this has happened for Pocono. There's a reason it was so big on social media this past week. And there's something that I want to tell all the tracks and the media and the NASCAR industry as a whole. Don't blame the fans. I saw some media, not shocking who they were, blaming the fans for not preparing accordingly. Well, the thing is, I get that rain was an issue, thunderstorms were an issue, and they did have to bring a lot of their staff and the police force inside just due to safety. But fans should not have to plan to be there 5, 6, 7 hours early to a race in the early afternoon to be able to see the whole race. I've been to over 50 NASCAR races in the last 15 or so years, and I have been in my share of bad traffic, Michigan especially, but also one we'll talk about in a bit, Nashville Superspeedway. Even the media and the teams this past week, many had talked about having issues getting in. This is not just isolated with the fans. And I think it's unfair to a lot of fans who are going to their first race, which, let's be honest, is the best way to really convert someone from maybe a middle-of-the-road fan to a complete diehard. And like I said, these are not isolated issues. Nashville Superspeedway in year one had terrible traffic, making people pay, and then finally saying, screw it, just let everybody in and we'll figure it out later. And I'm not going to lie, it has been better in recent years, but 2024 wasn't much better than this past year was, and 2024 had a much smaller crowd. They ran out of water as well in record heat in 2021, and also when you look at other tracks, Richmond Raceway, for instance. I went there in 2021 because I wanted to see Dale Jr. possibly race for the last time. We later learned that wasn't the truth, but there were huge lines everywhere. The souvenir areas had huge lines, and also the concessions had huge lines. I was lucky enough to have my phone at the ready and have the broadcast on, but if I didn't, I would have missed the entirety of the second stage of the 2021 September Richmond race. That's unacceptable as well. That's the equivalent, if you want to put it in a stick and ball reference, of pretty much missing from the middle of the first quarter to halftime of an NFL game. And I get that might be problems with different stadiums, I get that, but that should not be something that's the norm. And when I asked people who had went to Richmond for a while, they said, yeah, it's pretty normal to have these issues. That's not something fans should get used to or be okay with. Tracks need to know how to handle big crowds. And there's some problems that we've went over, and I think we need to look at the options of how to fix them, not just complain on social media and go and not really want to do anything. First off with the traffic. This is the biggest one we're going to see. Why? It's the biggest issue when it comes to a distance issue. We're going to see giant-ass mile-long traffic jams way easier than we're going to see concession issues under the stands or something like that. This all comes down to me to better planning. NASCAR attendance is up like we talked about across the board. There is no excuse at this point not to be ready for it. I get in 2021 not being ready for it. It's coming off the pandemic break basically of fans being at the track, and you also have to look at 2019 on back. It was pretty dismal those last couple years before the vid hit, and then I get maybe even 2022 having a bit of an issue, but we are 4 years now since then, and next year will be 5. Half a decade should not be the response time to these kind of issues. And I think that there just needs to be better hiring across the board as well, and better planning, because this can ruin or at least hamper the experience for the fans. And again, taking somebody to a NASCAR race is the quickest way to make them a fan. But if you ruin that experience, you might lose them forever. And NASCAR, more than ever, needs more fans heading into this new TV deal. And for the love of God, this is the biggest one that tracks need to know. Order water. There is no reason that a track should be running out of water. If you want to sell it, fine. I get that. That is the modern way of doing things. And when you have hot races, people are going to want to drink that water, and you're going to have a ton of money made from it. But there are super, super hot races in areas like Atlanta and Nashville that cannot, for the necessity and safety of a lot of people, have that happen. Now, one thing you can do is make them night races, preferably for more people at home to be able to watch a Sunday night race. But night races in general in the summer where it's hot, you need to have a few of those just for the safety of those watching. And also, when it comes to summer races at SMI tracks, let fans bring in coolers. I get you want to make your coin off of the fans needing something, but at the same time, this is something, one, that's normal in the NASCAR fan experience, and two, is something that if they don't have all the money ready to go to buy $12 water bottles or whatever they cost at different tracks now, they can at least safely have enough to be hydrated in the track. And that, to me, is inexcusable. When you have Texas and Nashville and Atlanta with these really, really hot, sometimes over 100-degree weather races, and you're not allowing people to properly bring in the hydration. I get that people should have the money to get water, but let's be honest, NASCAR fans are not the richest bunch. Most of the money went to getting the tickets and the gas to get there. So with me, it's all about preparation and budget when it comes to these tracks and everybody in charge of putting on these races. These things need to be addressed in a modern sporting event. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to you. And I want to know, what races are you planning to go to either this year or next? Let me know down in the comments below. And while you're at it, leave a like on this video, share this video, and subscribe to this channel for more great and fun NASCAR content. Thank you so much, all my channel members, for your continued support. And be sure to watch NWP tonight on Eric Estep's channel. Later in the show, we'll have special guest David Land coming on to prepare us for the Brickyard 400 weekend. Going to be a lot of fun. Cannot wait to see you there. And until then, have a good one.